Almost a decade ago, I became a member of Surviving Infidelity because I needed help in dealing with my wife's unfaithfulness. It's important to note that she wasn't unfaithful just once, but multiple times. Just a little over a week ago, my divorce was finalized, ending a 29-year-long marriage. It's all over, completely dissolved, and it's painful to think that it fell apart due to my wife's inability to remain loyal. She couldn't keep her promises from our wedding vows and chose to be involved with multiple other men. This was my second marriage, and it too ended because of infidelity. My first marriage, which lasted 10 years, was also destroyed by infidelity. My first wife was a serial cheater, and she even had a child with one of her affair partners, a fact I was unaware of until the divorce proceedings were underway. It's natural to start questioning yourself in moments like these. You might wonder, was it my fault? Did I make mistakes? Did I do something I shouldn't have? Was I unfaithful? But the truth is, you were always faithful. You never wandered, never betrayed, not once. So what went wrong? First marriage. I know that my wife had been sexually abused by a relative and raped by schoolmates. Both things I did not know at marriage. It doesn't excuse the cheating, but it helps explain it. Now, the story takes a different turn with my second marriage. Maybe marrying her wasn't the best choice looking back. But then again, if I hadn't, I wouldn't have had my beloved children, the one shining results of that relationship. She's a selfish and insensitive person, showing little concern for others unless there's something in it for her. Let me tell you how it all began. After my first marriage ended and I was in a vulnerable place, this young, sweet, blonde woman entered my life. My ex-wife introduced us, which in hindsight should have set off warning bells. But given my situation and the fact that she was attractive, young, and interested in me, what's a guy supposed to do? I spent the next 29 years regretting my decision. The first 5 to 6 years seemed okay, at least from what I could tell. Then everything fell apart. Starting in 1998, she had 6 affairs that I discovered, most of them related to her job as a registered nurse. This list includes a security guard who they met on restricted floors of the hospital where they worked and used the condoms stored there, another male nurse, a doctor, an orderly, a medical equipment salesman whom she engaged with in her office during work, causing her to lose her job, and finally, the only affair unrelated to her medical work. It was with the husband of a couple we had been friends with for over a year. Shockingly, he remained married while living with her. During this time, she underwent 2 breast augmentation surgeries, the second one giving her double Ds, which drew more praise because she isn't particularly fit for it. A nurse friend of hers revealed to me that this enhancement was done to increase her marketability. After 4 years of being apart, she's been with the other man the entire time. Why I have had the responsibility of looking after the kids, managing the house, handling the bills, and dealing with the threat of foreclosure. This so-called wife of mine is a serial cheater with a documented history of 6 affairs. She and the other guy just built a new house. She rarely spends time with her kids. In fact, since the lockdown in March, she only seen her 14-year-old daughter once. Even the older kids, aged 21 and 24, rarely see her. During this 4-year period, a lot has unfolded. She moved out, which was a relief, leaving me with the kids, who were then 10, 17, and 20. Just a month after she left, I received a diagnostic of prostate cancer. Then I discovered mold in our master's bathroom, which necessitates a costly 40,000 teardown and repairs. Fortunately, insurance covered it, but I still have to oversee the entire process. 6 months after her departure, our oldest daughter, who was 25 at the time, and her boyfriend were tragically killed in a car accident. The year 2016 was a challenging one, almost as tough as 2020 has been. Did I mention that at this point, we were 3 years into bankruptcy as well? We had a sizable house, 3,200 square feet in size, which we had fixed up and put up for sale. but there was no takers, not a single bite on the property in 3 long years. As all of this was unfolding, I discovered that she had stopped making mortgage and association fee payment. It was a shock to me because I couldn't afford to cover those costs. Subsequently, foreclosure proceedings were initiated and they dragged on for 3 years. Finally, in late 2019, after the kids and I had moved into an apartment, the courts completed the foreclosure on our once huge house, which was valued at $600,000. And it was the very house she had wanted. Her father had even given her $200,000 for a down payment on it. And there was more to this ordeal. We continued to file our income taxes jointly because otherwise I would have faced substantial tax burden. But even with this arrangement, I still faced a significant tax bill. She had promised to pay the 2016 taxes, but she didn't follow through. Fast forward to 2018, I received a tax notice from the IRS stating that I owed $3,200. She showed no concern or interest in resolving this matter. Eventually, I figured out a way to pay it, and I was fortunate that the IRS showed some leniency by allowing me to avoid penalties, and I only paid the interest. I also took care of the 2017 and 2018 taxes on my own, as she remained disengaged from the situation. Jump to 2019. The foreclosure happened in late autumn, and I thought it was finally all over. But I was wrong. I had to take my taxes to a CPA because, due to the foreclosure, it had become too complex for me to handle alone. And guess what? Because of the foreclosure, we ended up owing an additional $4,500 in taxes. Of course, she showed no interest in dealing with this situation. Surprising, isn't it? Fortunately, I received both stimulus checks in one payment, which I used to cover this unexpected expense. Too bad for her. I had reached a breaking point and didn't want to deal with any more trouble, so I decided to file for divorce. Although it took a bit of time to locate her and serve her with the divorce papers. 2 weeks of effort. Our attorney mentioned that it could be finalized in 2 to 3 months. I have already informed her that we'll be filing taxes separately from now on, and she's on her own. Furthermore, I have made it clear that if she doesn't cooperate with the divorce proceedings, I will take a tougher stance and request a substantial settlement, including spousal support and other benefits. She now has an incentive to simply sit back and go along with it. But soon, this challenging chapter of my life would come to an end. I can hardly wait. Oh, and on the positive note, if you know anything about post-traumatic stress, it can leave deep emotional scars. Well, that's how it was for me, dealing with a multitude of complications from the ongoing bankruptcy to the struggling of selling the house and the heart-wrenching loss of our daughter. I felt trapped in a web of problems. It's not as simple as just saying, I want a divorce. I had a glimpse of hope, but I kept getting pulled back into the dark tunnel. The more she cheated, the less I felt for her, and the more she sought out new passions, which had withered away due to her infidelity. It was a vicious circle, and she had 6 affairs in total. By the time the 6th affair happened, we had 3 kids, relocated to Florida, accumulated numerous responsibilities, and I was entangled in a complex web. Getting out of this situation wasn't easy. Divorce may sound straightforward, but within it, I faced a long, tough, and arduous journey. Her inconsistent employment or bankruptcy and the lack of extra funds to pay for a lawyer made it even more challenging. It took me until now to scrape together enough money to afford one. Maybe my previous explanation wasn't clear enough, but now you can understand the intricate web of problems I was dealing with. She moved out, and for the past 4 years, we haven't lived together. This separation gave me some peace of mind, and it was better for the kids, too. My wife even suggested that we should delay the divorce until the lawsuit regarding our daughter's death was resolved. Our daughter was tragically hit by a speeding cop without lights or sirens, but I told her that it would drag on for years. I didn't even think she understood the situation. She's transformed into an incredibly difficult person, ignoring her kids and focusing solely on herself. Her children absolutely dislike her, especially her 14-year-old daughter, who has no interest in seeing her. Furthermore, she has to commute an hour long to work because no other place around here would hire her, given her history of engaging in inappropriate behavior at work. I have informed her that we'll be filing our taxes separately from now on, and she's on her own. If we weren't legally divorced by December 31st, I will make sure to file my 2020 taxes before her in January, taking the child tax credit for my daughter. My daughter has been exclusively with me for the past 4.5 years and hasn't spent a full day at her mom's house. There is no doubt that I should claim her child care credit. I am absolutely determined when it comes to this year's taxes. As for my personal life, well, it's been a bit of a struggle after dealing with prostate cancer, but my job as a journalist, which I have been doing for 43 years, keeps me engaged and happy, and my kids keep me busy. I am not actively looking for a new relationship right now. As Simon and Garfunkel say, I have my books and my poetry. For me, it's music to protect me. I have gone through counseling, but life has prepared me for hardships. My dad passed away when I was just 6 years old, and while I had a stepdad, he wasn't heavily involved in my life. I learned at an early age how to handle things on my own. That, along with my Jewish background, has been a source of strength. Mazel tov. Finally, after a long wait, she's been served with divorce papers, which has ignited her anger. She's asking, why are you doing this now? Can't you wait for a few more years? She earns more money, doesn't have the kids to take care of, and is living with her affair partner, who is also still married. She genuinely doesn't seem to understand. All I want is to break free from this marriage, but she can't grasp why I can't wait until our youngest child turns 18 and graduates in 3.5 years. She's saying, you have already waited for this long, 4 years. Why now? She even found my comments about needing to end the marriage for my own peace of mind disrespectful to our children. But she doesn't seem to see the disrespect in living with another married person while she's still married herself. She's concerned about child and spousal support, even though I assured her that whatever the court decides, especially in Florida, where child support is mandatory, I would just give it back to her because I don't want her money. She responded with, no, I don't trust you. Now, let's consider this. In our 25 years together that I know of, she had 6 affairs, left our marriage and our kids, barely spends time with them, and mostly focus on herself. And she doesn't trust me? Well, we're moving forward with this divorce, with or without your trust. I am trying to make this process as cost effective and simple as possible for both of us. I have paid for a lawyer, and all she has to do is complete her form, attend the parenting classes, and sign the divorce decree. I am not trying to take advantage of her. The mere thought makes me queasy. If she wants to get a lawyer, that's her choice and her expense, not mine. I filed for a divorce in September after 4 years of separation, and she's asking, why now? She makes significantly more than I do, and she's essentially living rent-free with her boyfriend, who is still married. In contrast, I have been renting a 3-bedroom place with our 14-year-old daughter and my 25-year-old son for the past 2 years. Before that, our daughter, son, and our 21-year-old daughter lived with me in our former marital home, and we eventually lost to foreclosure because she wouldn't contribute to the mortgage or HOA fees. That decision to let the house go into foreclosure came back to haunt me because the forgiven money from the foreclosure is considered taxable income, and it bumped up my tax bill to $4,500. She refused to contribute to this expense. Now, we're in Florida and there are calculations for child support. She's reluctant to pay, claiming it will negatively affect her credit and might prevent her from leasing a new car in 18 months. She just wants a divorce without any financial responsibilities. I have hired a lawyer, but she hasn't. She threatened to go after my pension if she has to pay support. I haven't asked for spousal support because I don't want her money, and I have repeatedly told her that, but she refuses to listen. She's also complaining about a visitation schedule. She doesn't want a fixed schedule, she says. This is quite ironic. Since the beginning of the pandemic, she has seen our 14-year-old daughter only once for a few hours on a Sunday. And even before the pandemic, she barely spent any time with her daughter. Perhaps a few hours on a Sunday, never overnight at her place, and never for more than a few hours. At this point, I am considering that if she drags her feet or target my pension, I'm 65 and still working, planning to contribute until my daughter graduates from high school. I might go all in and request for both spousal and child support. In the 4 years since she moved out and subsequently moved in with her married boyfriend, she hasn't contributed a single penny towards income taxes, which amounts to about $8,500, any of our daughter's living expenses or clothing. She did cover some medical bills because her birthday comes first in the year, and legally, she's responsible for the first crack at bills. However, she hasn't supported our kids during holidays at all. In these 4 years, there was no Thanksgiving celebrations for the kids. She claims she doesn't do turkey anymore. Christmas has been less than satisfactory, and their birthdays have been disappointing. Meanwhile, she and her married boyfriend managed to build a new house. I have no idea how she pulled that off, so this divorce is bound to be an interesting one. I am trying to navigate this process as cost effectively as possible because our only common ground now is our 14-year-old daughter. It may not be easy though, as we are just starting, and it's likely that I will have to assert my position with child support and spousal support. The reason we are here is her difficulty in making rational decisions. She had 6 affairs in basically a 12-year period of our 26-year marriage. I won't back down, but sometimes being flexible can be advantageous. Like a willow tree, I will bounce back up. Why any opposition exhaust itself in vain efforts? I have an attorney and she's representing herself pro se. I have also had sole custody of our youngest child exclusively for the past 4.5 years. Florida laws are pretty strict when it comes to child support, so I'm not overly concerned about that aspect. I met an attorney today and we have a case management hearing coming up in less than 1 month. It's likely to be a surprise for her because she hadn't filled out any required forms, filed financial information, or taken the mandatory child support and parenting courses. I have taken care of all these responsibilities and I am committed to seeing this through. The judge won't be pleased with lack of progress. I have been doing much better in not letting her influence my decisions. I have been clear and unwavering, continuously emphasizing that this is happening. I have been waiting for a long time to finally free myself from this burden. My lawyer is handling most of the details, and I touch base with him from time to time. We have a case management conference on the 19th, following a mediation meeting and a support conference. With any luck, unless she goes completely irrational and force me to take legal action against her, we could have this all settled by New Year's Day. It's time to celebrate like it's 2001. In situations like this, there is no magical solution. No amount of advice, conversation, or suggestions can mend a marriage that's gone so far off course. The only solution is to bring it to an end. It took me 5 years to reach this point. Once she's left, leaving me with the kids and the bills, even though she made more than I did. It was a long and challenging journey to get to this point. I have to navigate through battle with cancer, specifically prostate cancer, which left me with diminishing capabilities in certain areas. I also had to cope with the heartbreaking loss of our daughter, raising my remaining kids without their mother, dealing with the foreclosure of our home, and covering both her and my income taxes for 4 years because she refused to contribute, which amount to about $13,000. This year, I legally separated our finances as divorce had been filed, allowing her to feel the financial burden. I have lost a great deal, almost 30 years, that I could have spent with someone else who likely would have been faithful, someone to grow old with and cherish. The simple truth is that if she had the capacity to be faithful, I would have stayed and been the most devoted and faithful spouse ever. Instead, I found myself single, raising our 15-year-old daughter, who is doing well in school, getting all A's and B's in her first year of high school. Yeah, working full time and trying to avoid falling into depression, which isn't my usual state of mind. If only there was a genuine oracle who could look into a crystal ball, peer into a smoky pool, or read tea leaves, or perhaps a big blue genie who could grant wishes. My one wish would be to have my kids without a problematic partner. Or if any of you out there have finished with your magic rings or have a spare you wish to spare, kindly send it my way. But alas, that's not to be. What could have been a very sweet life for both of us has turned into a struggle to make ends meet. I am not living under a bridge, but it's also far from a carefree life. At 67, I am still responsible for raising a teenager, my 15-year-old, who is going to be a sophomore in high school. And I also have a 25-year-old son at home. Sometimes I wonder what I did to end up in this situation. I have to confess, moving forward from here isn't just challenging, it's downright disheartening. I have been through 2 divorces. My bind for 3,000 spouse speaker is clearly broken. I am a prostate cancer survivor with all the associated challenges that comes with it. I am sure you know what I mean. And I worked in a profession that isn't the most stable. Think of something black and white that's red all over. Aside from my kids, whom I absolutely adore and will never neglect, there's no one else in my life. Sure, I have friends and a couple of good ones, but that special someone has become as elusive as a jackalope. The few dates I have had were quite unremarkable, and I have essentially set myself aside, not for romantic pursuit, but to ponder things on my own pace. The last 45 or so years, which encompass my first marriage, divorce, and second marriage, and now this second divorce, has flown by in a blur. Whoosh! In some ways, this swift passage of time has been a blessing. It allows me to forget the pain, the suffering, the humiliation, and the deep, twisting agony of discovering not once, but twice that I had married someone unfaithful, and not just someone who made a single mistake, but both times I found myself entangled in serial cheaters. If that guy Joey from Cheaters had been involved, he would have had a field day with my ex-wives. I imagine when time comes to have a discussion with the higher powers, if that's where I land, God willing, and if the river Styx doesn't rise, I will be asking some hard questions like, what on earth were you thinking? Perhaps there is a very good reason, and maybe I have some other poor soul who wouldn't have handled this situation as well from a very different and worse fate. Wherever the explanation, it had better to be a good one. So yesterday, I received a text from my newly ex-wife wishing me happy Father's Day. I spent a few hours just staring at that text. In the past, I would usually berate her, telling her that I'm not her father, and she would respond with something about our kids. But I am exhausted by the drama, the nonsense, just plain tired. This year, I took the high road and simply said, thanks. Yeah, I don't agree with the sentiment, but sometimes it's better to just let go rather than encouraging more bitterness. And let's be realistic, there's no chance she's going to get swallowed by a sinkhole or abducted by aliens. So I would just move on. Thank you for staying to the end of this story. Please support this channel by liking and subscribing. Let me get your reaction on the comment section. Thank you and have a wonderful day.